We're going to wait just a second as people pile in. Thank you, everyone. People are lining up. Welcome. And thank you for joining us for another edition of ALN Thursday at 3. My name is Mike Bordenaro. I am the Executive Director of the Asset Leadership Network, and very happy to have Cyril Verley, President and CEO of CDV Systems, as our guest today. Based on the 15 minutes of fun talk that we just had, this is going to be a good presentation. But first, as always, we like to, I didn't put it in order properly. That's for later. Okay, there's the Cyril that we all know and love. So we would like to thank our organizational members, Platinum member Onuma Inc., our ALN patron members, Definitive Logic, which is a Mantech company, ABS Quality Evaluations, Jacobs, and CGI. CGI is having an event on Monday the 11th in Washington, D.C. Check out their website for that. And our other organizational members, all of which contribute to the programs and content that we generate, and we're very grateful for everyone's participation. If you're interested in membership, please reach out to us at assetleadership.net. And very excited that we're going to be meeting in person on January 10th through the National Academy of Sciences. We're going to be showcasing multiple reports from the U.S. Government Accountability Office, and the National Academy of Sciences published the Strategies to Renew Federal Facilities, which kind of is the solution to many of the reports that are coming out from the Government Accountability Office. And we're going to be having no host reception and dinner, and we're looking to have a program on January 11th also. So we'll keep in touch with you about how this is all shaping up, but we're really excited and look forward to seeing you in person. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a second before we get to Cyril, because this ALN Thursday at 3 with Cyril is a really important program. It demonstrates what the Asset Leadership Network advocates, and that is a focus on a systematic approach to managing your assets. It's a system of systems. And we are so proud that through the Asset Leadership Network, some of our members have connected and have put together a system of systems solution for building owners that not only addresses facilities, but the assets in those facilities. It's a system of systems that breaks down the silos between asset categories. What Cyril is going to talk about, and we've got a couple slides, but we want to keep this very discussion oriented. And please feel free to use the chat or the question and answers section to engage with us. And the breakdown of these walls between buildings and personal property and fleet and natural assets, which we have started to touch on also. It's the same thing. We need the right information in an open standards approach. It does not matter what software you use. If you use open standards to shift your fleet information into a building, into any different type of program. So this is me being very excited about something I've been working towards for a long time. So without further ado, I want to introduce Cyril by sharing the screen once again and showing a little bit about what Cyril has done at CDV Systems. Here are all of the companies that he is working for. He is doing work for owners, and he's also doing work with architects, engineers, and contractors who are serving owners. Listen to what this guy has to say, is what I'm trying to tell you. So, Cyril, how you doing?
I'm great, Mike. I'm doing
And
well,
where
thank
are
you.
you today? We know that you live in your Airstream
I
trailer.
am. I'm overlooking a beautiful sunny day in Malibu, California, overlooking the ocean right in front of me. It's pretty breathtaking.
We
So
feel really sorry for you, Cyril.
it's a tough life.
So this is in conjunction with a web video, a video that you've created that really lays out what you're excited about. But before we get to what you are releasing this week, let's get a little bit of background on you. You've been our guest before, but I think it's important to kind of talk about where you started from, the big jumps you've made through your career.
Sure. So I'm an architect since 1985. Graduated from Syracuse School of Architecture, and my first job was at SOM New York. There, I became a senior designer while I was there for 3 years, and that's where I got my first introduction to BIM, or CAD, I should say. David Childs walked in the design department one day. There's 35 of us, and just asked, "Who wants to do CAD?" And I was one of two people that raised our hands. Then I left SOM, went to France, worked a year and a half there as a designer using Archicad, which I thought was a very slick program. And at the time, it didn't do construction documents, but it did really beautiful models.
That's
And then
the
I came
French
back,
pronunciation of Archicad.
Archicad. That's right.
In the
Archicad.
French, call it Archicad. Okay.
Right. I've got dual citizenship, so my parents are both French. Um, and then I came back, worked at Goody Clancy, a firm in Boston, started using AutoCAD, became their CAD manager. And in 1992, I left and started CDV Systems, focusing on CAD services. And I wanted to build models. Because I did a lot of 3D modeling when I was there. And this is not a BIM. It's not a true building information model. It was just lots of surfaces enabling you to see the building three-dimensionally. And these were not smart objects. In those 7 years of having CDV for CAD, I worked with Autodesk and wrote 2 of their course manuals for Architectural Desktop, which was their premier program in AutoCAD. And when I finished up the second book, Revit called and said, "Come see what we're doing." And I was expecting a half-hour meeting. 6 hours later, I was blown away. So they made me a job offer. It took 6 months to make the decision because business was booming. And I went to work I decided to go and work for Revit Technology Corporation. And a year and a half later, Autodesk bought it. And then that's when I reactivated CDV Systems and focused on just Revit, because I think Phil Bernstein called me at the time and said, "Cyril, we don't want to lose you as a consultant. What can I do?" And I said, "Phil, I think I found something better than Architectural Desktop. Revit was just amazing as this digital database, this three-dimensional database." So reactivated CDV Systems, focusing on Revit in 2002. And the list of clients you see in front of you, we've got the best clients in the world, working on projects all over the world, modeling, mentoring, training, building content, me and my team, of course. And with that structure and with that foundation of working with all these firms, from our perspective now, the consistent issue that we've noticed is owners need guidance regarding this content, because they receive models from their architects, engineers, and contractors, and they 90%, 95% of the time they'll tell me, "We just shelve them. We don't, because we don't know what to do with them." So that's been our focus now, is to make these models useful from the owner's perspective, because these models are from our perspective, to manage an asset, the first step to managing any room or asset is you have to locate it. And the architects,
Cyril,
engineers, yes.
So the architects, engineers, go ahead, finish that thought.
And contractors are the ideal folks to create a file format where the owner can locate those objects.
Okay, so a little historic context. Before BIM, people complained about rolls of architectural drawings going into boxes in the basement and getting soaked with water and everybody having to recreate the information again.
Right.
So here we moved to the information age and had information about everything. And 90% of the time it's being shelved and people are walking floors and doing the exact same thing as when we were back in the paper-based world.
Right.
So CDV Systems created Collectus.
Correct.
So explain that, because this is a huge thing. This concept of harvesting BIM puts it so simply.
Right. So what we found, what the missing thread in all of these models that are designed by architects, engineers, and contractors is a data structure. And when we do implementations for clients like HOK, SOM, MBBJ, AECOM, we would go in with a package of content that represented our standards, which were consistent and predictable. And after time, those standards that were on their file servers would change. They'd be broken. They would go off in different directions. And so we decided to create this database of this Collectus, which is in essence is a delivery system for our standard library. And it's made up of 36,000 components. It's not just a list of families out of Revit. It's our best practice workflows of how to use BIM in an efficient way for the architects, engineers, and contractors, MEP engineers and contractors. And within those models is a data structure that's useful for the owner. That's the key, because architects have no idea what the owner needs in terms of models. The contractor does, but it's always additional services. So we've created an environment in this content that includes a data structure for manufacturing information and operations and maintenance information that the contractor is supposed to provide, the owner requires, but we're having it, the infrastructure is built inside the models so that when the contractor drops in an air handling unit, the data structure is already there for them to fill in. And as a result, these are data-rich models with the intention of harvesting that data. And that's where Onuma Systems
comes in. All right. So before we go on to the next step, Cyril was going to the secret sauce here, but I want to focus on some of the things that you said here, because it's really important. You said they're lacking a data structure.
Right.
Okay. What that is, the data structure is the owner's business process model. The data structure has to support what the owner is doing. And we might use all these other terms, but it's owner's requirements. And the best way to actually structure all of this is to use an asset management governance. So if you're doing a building, if you're doing a revision of your organization, you can have all of your assets in a model that reflects the business process that you want to do. And then you can start the animation and have the machines going and Charlie Chaplin going through all the wheels and have the outcomes that you want. You can model it ahead of time, run it a number of different ways, and choose which way you want to have your business process model to be operating. So we talk about these things very loosely, but I want to say what is happening is asset management. And what we're trying, so Cyril is imposing a structure for the asset information. And I'm saying asset management governance is an overlay structure for how to operate. Right. All right. And Cyril has gotten us to all these points where he's got the air handlers in the right room. So what's the important part? What's missing? And there's many software programs that say they're going to help you with your computer maintenance and management system. What's missing most of those?
Well, I'm going to take one step back. Part of this part of the Collectus package, and you mentioned it in terms of governance, ISO values or to be able to define what the requirements are. Collectus includes a BIM execution plan. It's not just the typical form that you fill out, but it also includes the actual data structure that's also inside the structure of Collectus itself. So when you see a certain parameter value, fire rating, it's in BIM execution plan that's defined as a document, and that's also in the content, so that everyone knows they have to fill that in.
Yes.
Now,
Every business process model includes don't burn down the building.
right.
So some of these things can be
Pretty important.
standardized, right? It's
Right.
like,
Exactly.
yeah.
And it's nothing beyond what the contractor or subcontractor or the engineer or architect are providing. We're just creating that infrastructure inside this, and they can still create custom content too. We're not limiting it to that, but so once these models are delivered, and they are data rich, we would definitely not suggest that the owner uses those models to manage the facility. That's an absolute mess. We've tried that with clients before, and that's just not, because BIM is not designed to do that. The intention is these data rich models can be used for harvesting the data. In other words, locating the rooms, locating the assets, and getting that out of the models and into an application where, from a map or a handheld device, you can actually locate the building, locate the level, locate the room, look at the asset, and all the data that's sitting in these data rich models for both the rooms and assets can be harvested into those kinds of applications for whatever you want to do. So we're agnostic to the application you use to manage the facility, but in an ideal world, having a map allows you to navigate through the model. Having a map is the key. That's the foundation. That's why I love indoor GIS, because if I wasn't an architect, I'd be doing indoor GIS, because that to me is BIM on steroids. Because not only you're working with one building, you're working with an entire campus. And that's what.
So simply stated, indoor GIS is Uber inside your building.
Correct. Google Maps inside your building.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Where is the maintenance man going, and is he getting to the point at the time that he is supposed to? Now, not everything is set up that way, but now what is the world of CMMS like? Are there maps in most of the CMMS programs?
Alas, they are not. They would like to have maps, but the only, I mean, WebTMA, Maximo, amazing programs without question, but without a map to find your way through the building, that's the trick. And so when Mike, we met about a year ago, that's when you introduced me to Kimono Onuma and Onuma System and BIM Genie, and I thought, wow, this is combining so many different applications into one, and yet it's still an open architecture. And that's what I love about this. It's that it's not just, his perspective is, Kimono's perspective is always use our product or not. That's fine. We're agnostic, we're fine with that. But, with a handheld device, you're being able to locate any space in the building, look at the assets, and then create a work order from the handheld device, or create reports for space information, asset information, occupancy requirements, locating shutoffs. It's quite remarkable to be able to have a variety of applications for asset management, space management, operations maintenance, document management, CMMS for creating work orders within Onuma system applications. So that's what excites me, and that's, you mentioned the video that we created that sort of combines the two. That from our perspective, creating a data structure, pre-occupancy, that's Collectus, and then taking that data and harvesting it post-occupancy for whatever FM, CMMS, or indoor GIS needs you have. That's on the Onuma system side.
So today, Cyril is going to release a video, and it'll be available on his website. And if you don't get it emailed directly to you, and this is one of the slides, but this is an animation slide that he goes through, and it's great. It goes from many buildings, one building, one floor, to many rooms, one room. And then you've got room data that you need for capital planning, space planning, custodial needs, indoor GIS. And that's for just the room data.
Exactly.
Now you've got the asset data, you got work orders, you got warranties, PMs.
Reactionary maintenance, operations and maintenance documents, whatever
Thank
they
you.
are.
That's your video. I should have let you say it.
That's okay. It's all good.
And uh, the point is that there are many benefits for owners to have. And some of those benefits are dramatic savings when you have your data structured properly.
Right. I mean, this screen shows the ROI of what we're addressing. So actually, if you could go, well, we can look at the screen. If you're not going to be harvesting data from these models in an efficient format, like Onuma Systems as an example. Go ahead.
You can share your screen if you want to
Oh,
get to a
excellent.
certain slide.
Sure. I mean, some of these images you'll see in the video, and I can post the link to the video in the chat line. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, good. Come on. So,
don't do the whole thing. Just get to the
no,
one that you
no.
want to.
Of course, I want to go to the one that. So, within the video, it describes for new and existing buildings to create a siloed structure.
We're just seeing your first page with all your clients.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Let me share again. Whoops.
No, now we see siloed data structure 12 months for
Okay,
new
good.
existing buildings.
So there was a delay. So typically when an owner receives models and they want to somehow create an environment, they want to implement some kind of FM, GIS, or CMMS program, there's a huge amount of time involved, at least 12 months to sort of set up that system.
For a new building.
For a new or existing building, either one.
Okay. It's 12 months. All right.
Correct. Now, for an existing building, we call it a consolidated digital twin. This is using Onuma System and BIM Genie. Literally can be done in days, where what it creates, it consolidates a variety of data structures, Excel files, PDFs, CAD, BIM, operations and maintenance documents. And we've done this. I mean, I've seen it myself, that we've, literally in days created a consolidated digital twin, locating the rooms and assets with owner provided data. Now, what we're suggesting in this, so for a campus that already exists, they're going to have existing buildings. There's, any institution has that, and they've got a variety of asset formats. This is where we would suggest a consolidated digital twin. Don't try to recreate any BIMs, because trying to recreate BIMs from existing buildings, it's inefficient, and you're better off just using what you have. In terms of time that you can save. Then with new buildings, combining Collectus and this BIM Genie Onuma System structure, there within hours, once the models are received, we can actually harvest into the Onuma System structure the rooms, the assets, and all the project data. I call it LOD, level of data. LOD 300 is for the architects and engineers to fill in terms of the parameter structure, the data structure. LOD 400 is manufacturing information for the contractor and subcontractor to fill in their models. And LOD 500 is operations and maintenance data that the contractor or subcontractor fills in those models. Literally in hours, this can be harvested into this Onuma System BIM Genie structure. And at that point, navigating through the project with a handheld device, you can start maintaining the assets literally within the first week. So let's see.
Unheard of. No, why don't you stop sharing your screen right now?
Okay.
And let me say that the thing that I like about what Cyril is doing is he's got a 13-minute video. The first 3 minutes is all the owner, the CEO needs to see, and they should be ready to say, okay, I want to know more. People who are interested in more details can see the rest of the video, but they're also offering web meetings with people who want to learn more. Because just like this presentation, this webinar is just an overview to say, this is a direction you should be thinking about. And then since the meetings would be with you, Cyril, and with Kimon, we've asked Kimon to join us. Kimon, can you turn on your camera and your screen?
Hello. Here I am.
Thanks for joining us. So we've been all over the place. We've been excited. We're saving you at the last to kind of make a little bit of sense. What have we said that's right, and what do you want to add? Don't say anything that's wrong. Don't talk about anything that's wrong.
No, it's perfect. Yeah, it's a complex subject, but breaking it down like this, and especially the video, is great for doing that. It can be, it's achievable if you think in terms of kind of breaking it out into pieces, and also having from a business process perspective, understanding what the rules are and turning them from kind of an analog format into a BP, like Cyril mentioned, and then having the data flow into different systems within the digital twins. So digital twins are about connecting systems to each other. And that's where the open standards and open data, actually, open data first, before even you get into standards would be great to have, but just having data in a format that can be read, that's a huge step, because a lot of owners struggle with that even. You have it in different PDFs and Excel files and spreadsheets. So starting to make those connections, that's where you get the real value coming together. And that can be done incrementally, but you can get, there's a huge value to doing even simple things to begin with. But as soon as you do that, you can start expanding it pretty quickly, especially if you have a strategy and an execution plan and the technologies in place that can talk to each other. And then you can start tracking the assets across the life cycle. That's kind of the basics of it, I guess, as I see it.
Do you have an example of a client who has benefited from this structured approach to asset management that you can share some benefits they've enjoyed, either one of you?
Sure, I could mention the Los Angeles Community College District, which is the largest higher educational institute in the US. They have 11 million square feet, 5,000, I'm sorry, getting the numbers wrong, 742 buildings at the Los Angeles level, 5,000 at the state level. They have a lot of data in structured format in web services on an API, which means we can plug into it and use that in GIS, BIM, and CMS systems, or other systems as well. Like we mentioned, like Cyril mentioned earlier, we're not stuck to one application. That's an important thing too. Owners really need to own their data and be able to move it in and out and not be held hostage. We've heard this word over and over again at a lot of discussions about if data is held hostage, then you're really stuck to one vendor. And that's the worst place to be from the life cycle.
So an owner who specifies the use of software that adheres to open, secure data sharing, that owner would help itself immensely.
Absolutely.
If that was a policy, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it becomes an asset. Data becomes an asset.
You know, one other thing I wanted to mention, Mike, for those that are curious about the video, at the end of the video, there's a QR code that takes the user to a campus of buildings, and the user can actually, using their handheld device, can navigate through the campus to a building, to a level, to a room, and actually create a work order right there on their handheld device, and to get a glimpse of what we're talking about as a digital twin. But at least there they can actually experience for themselves how they would navigate through an entire campus of buildings from their cell phone. So that's a very interesting aspect of the video.
So this is something that's different. I've never done this. I'm asking one of our attendees a question. Andre, how many of the CMMS programs, the facility management programs, actually are using maps? You've presented an Esri ArcGIS link products, but if you can answer in the chat, that's fine. The main thing that I wanted to point to is that in preparation for this, Cyril said that Maximo, one of the largest of the programs, has no maps for all the data that they have for the buildings. And what this combined system does is use open, secure standards to allow the information from the building information models to be harvested through Cyril's and then visually represented on accurate maps in the BIMGenie program.
Yep, BIMGenie. Yep.
Maybe one clarification, Mike and Cyril, is I think there are definitely applications that have indoor maps, including just in GIS applications and even some CMMS applications. So we're not saying that this is exclusive to what we're showing. The difference, I think, is that we're really pushing for this connectivity. When we really get into the term of a digital twin, it can't be, and we're not saying these other applications are either. The world is evolving around us, but the connectivity between systems is so critical because you can't have one application doing everything. And we need to be laser focused on that, and how do we expand that functionality so you're not recreating geometries and data over and over again and trying to keep it in sync, because that's a huge effort in itself. That's a whole industry just around that. How do we keep things in sync? And that does not scale well.
Right. I
So
think
thank
the
you for
other-
not saying it's something we said wrong, but something that you wanted to improve upon. That was well played, Kimo.
And I think the other key with this kind of data structure or open standard is the ability of having a variety of departments within an institution benefit from it. For example, typically capital planning or real estate departments don't communicate whatsoever with custodial. And yet if they can all use the same data and all use the same structure and the same maps at a minimum would be huge. So
all right, so 2 points. One is to really emphasize that what you two are saying is to use open standards and map your assets. You're not saying use our software. You're saying this to improve the world. This is a strategy that is real important, and you've both been saying this for years. And so thank you for that miracle on 34th Street approach. If you don't get it from us, get it from somebody else. Just make your kids happy, right? Because this is about making kids and grandkids and future generations happy. So thanks for that. And I forget what the second thing was. So if anybody wants to talk, address this concept, that's fine.
It's actually getting the message out to ask for that, regardless of what system or tool you use. So in a digital twin, actually Cyril and I are on the subcommittee at the National Institute of Building Sciences on digital twin and BIM. How do we bring those worlds together? And the biggest thing with that is if you have systems talking to each other with data, then you can plug in any other system into it. As soon as you don't have that connectivity, you're locked into that proprietary set of tools. And the world is so rapidly changing around us that it's absolutely the only way to make it scale, like I mentioned earlier. And the important message from an asset and leadership perspective is leaders need to know to ask for that. They need to know to ask for that functionality. Otherwise, it kind of defaults to the lowest common denominator, which then again causes problems from an owning your asset data perspective.
Yes. And of course, we advocate an asset management structure that's overriding all of this. Cyril introduced me to the concept of business process model, and that's the driver. What is your business process? And then all of the things that you're talking about serve that. It's not that digital twins are driving the organization. That's not how it is. Digital twins are serving. And since you brought up NIBS, Kimo, and I want to have this on the record. When BIM first came out, it was called Building Information Modeling, because the people who are involved in the process and making the software work together and how the systems engage existing structures of data that architects follow, it's about the process. But I wished people would talk about building information models, the noun, because the owners aren't as interested in the process. They want the noun, they want the outcome. And by focusing on process, which is natural because it's process people who are writing this, it's just like writing, the ISO 55000 asset management standard. It's all these people are talking about process, but what we need to do is get to the owners and have the owners understand what the outcome is of these processes. And the NIBS digital twin team seems to be making digital twins of the process. And yes, there are processes that are necessary in order to have the information from a thermometer sensor activate a chiller or a boiler, but it's really the digital twin that the owner is interested in. They want to make sure they know what their things are. And the process is important, but we got to think about the owners and talk about digital twins, not digital twinning. All right, I
Right.
see you thinking about that, Kimon. What's your
There's a lot. We can have a whole session about that. But first of all, BIM, there's 3 different definitions even at NIBS: building information model, building information modeling, and building information management. Unfortunately, it's all the same acronym, but and then depending on which angle you come in from, just like you said, Mike, some people are more interested in the process, some are more interested in the outcome. And from a digital twin perspective, there's a concept of a use case. How do we get value out of it? What's the output from this? What are we getting out of this? Then there's obviously the infrastructure and the business drivers behind it. So really it's all together, but it's hard to understand it all together in one chunk, but you can understand it from your perspective. Okay, I want to get an outcome out of this. I want to save money, or I want to save energy, or I want to be efficient about my spaces or buildings. And maybe the technology team is looking at it from the process and the technology that drives it and data, but it all kind of comes together. And that's what digital twins are really all about. Just kind of a all-encompassing angle to it.
Yes. Well, let's take it up another level, since I've got 2 architects here. I don't think it's an accident that Thomas Jefferson was an architect. I think his structural mind for how to put buildings together helped him understand how to structure the governance of a country. And while we're talking about all these processes, I want to emphasize that it's a structured governance that's going to help an organization. And we should stay focused on the organization's mission, which is the first step of ISO 55001. Your strategic asset management plan shall support your organizational objective, the mission. And so I really like that you 2 are architects and are coming up with the structure that helps owners govern their organization. So we got a couple questions here from Andre. Since he answered ours, it's only appropriate that we answer his. What are some of the open standard BIM schemas that you would support, promote, or recommend?
Well, currently,
go ahead. Cyril.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I would say, the collective structure includes COBie, of course. That would be one of the standards. The structure of our data is a collection of a variety of clients in terms of data, in terms of what they want out of the models as a deliverable. And so we incorporated those structures, sort of making a blend of, that's right, COBie. We made a blend of those within the collectus database. And if a contractor or subcontractor were to look at our BIM execution plan, and they would see, a parameter called flow or voltage, they're not going to be surprised by that value. So we've incorporated quite a few into this one schema. But what's nice is that it's consistent. And it's consistent not only in the documents, but it's consistent within the models themselves. So the BIM teams don't have to build anything; they just simply, have that structure already predetermined. And of course, we can incorporate other structures as well. So that's right.
Kimon, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I was just going to build up on that. Yeah, COBie is an important standard because it kind of gives you a structure to land information, but it still needs kind of the execution part. What does the owner really want to be delivered back? Right. COBie doesn't answer those questions. So it's more about how it gets delivered back, and the owner has to define what gets delivered back. There's a lot of other BIM international standards from Building Smart International, and what NIBS is doing with the BIM program, the BIM standards there. So we can put links in here, but there are a lot of existing standards. Then there are other technology standards that are not even BIM related when we start getting into digital twins, about how do you exchange information and data, through the web, especially with web and APIs now in the cloud, and even the use of AI. All of these things need to be wired together, and there's there are standards already out there that define how to do that. That could be a whole session in itself.
Yes. We're looking to do something on the 11th, and maybe I should reach out to the National Institute of Building Sciences and see if they want to do something. It's kind of short for them, but we'll look into that because, yeah, there is a lot to be saying here. And Andre, I put the Building Smart link in there also. Well, we've gone over. People don't seem to mind. They've been sticking around. Kimon, do you want to say anything? And then we'll let Cyril have the last word.
If anything, I kind of touched on AI a little bit, but what I've observed is that the rise of AI in the last, it's been around for a long time, but the interest from everybody, not just in the building industry, in the use of artificial intelligence relies on access to information. It goes back to that open data. So if you want to get good answers using any tools, whether they're humans or artificial intelligence, you need, first of all, you need to get to the data, be able to get to the data. If it's in your drawer or in a CD, it's not going to work. Next, you need some kind of structure to it, whether it's your own internal standard or external standard. And that's what we've been advocating for years and years and years. But I think now we actually have a good reason. We're getting a lot of, not just in the building industry, but there's a lot of the C-suite and owners and leaders that are saying, hey, we need to use this new AI tool to be more competitive and more efficient in what we do. And I think the building industry is perfectly positioned to take that challenge and apply what we've been developing, or not just we, but just in terms of building industry standards, to the use of, to even guide the use of AI in the proper way. So this goes back to getting the standard in place, using it, implementing it, and then repeating it from a governance perspective and driving it through the business process to get good outcomes.
So that gets to why I got so excited about BIM from the beginning. Visualizing the information is then the next step to be able to validate that information. You can see it on the map. Yes, it's in the right place. No, that's wrong. So building information model, the visualization of the accurate data or inaccurate data allows people to say, I see what you're saying, talking about related to very complex subjects. So Cyril?
No, I think what Kamal was describing was great. I think AI is the next step in this evolution. I'm going to coin Kimon's term, normalized data structure. I think that's the key, is to create an environment that has this normalized data structure for whatever you want to do with it. And that's just, as an open architecture, that's the key. And rather than having lots of disparate data structures between different file formats, yeah, I think there's a way to sort of consolidate that into a structure and make it useful for the owner for whatever they want to do. That's the ideal.
And the main thing that the Asset Leadership Network wants to say is there are solutions to the complex problems that are out there. There are things that work. You can start solving problems very quickly when you have the right asset management governance. So thank you both. We're very happy that you met through the Asset Leadership Network. A shout out to Deke Smith for making that connection in his leadership role in Building Smart and NIBs and standards and all of that too. So before we go, I do want to just thank everybody once again. So thank you, Cyril. I've been very excited about this, and I hope I haven't been overly excited. And thank you to Platinum member Kimon Onuma. It's his company, Onuma Inc. That is the member, but thank you, Kimon. Our ALN patron members, Definitive Logic, a Mantech company, CGI, ABS Quality Evaluations, and Jacobs, and all of our members. We attract really great people, and it's been one of the pleasures of working with the Asset Leadership Network is the people at these organizations are just spectacular. And want to encourage you once again. We're working out the details for January 10th, the agenda, and adding on a day for the 11th. But if you're in the DC area or can get yourself there, please do so. And let's see. Are there other questions? No. Kyle Christensen, thank you. Well, interesting cultural changes to allow facility managers to take advantage of centralized system. Oh, Kyle, please join the ALN. Let's have a program based on the cultural systems alone. But that again is another program that can branch out of this one. So thanks everyone for joining us. This has been a fun program, and we look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you
Bye for now.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.